Nationalism means acting in the self-interest of your country, taking into account its unique aspects. Yoram, talking about the reaction to Brexit, in which Britain was seeking to escape from the European Union economic zone, writes, and I quote, "The simple truth is that the emerging liberal construction is incapable of respecting, much less celebrating, the deviation of nationals seeking to assert a right to their own unique laws, traditions, and policies." The EU started off as a free trade zone, but gradually grew into an entity with taxes and regulations ordered from Brussels. The misleading term, harmonization, was used to describe increasing these taxes and regulations and imposing them on all the countries in the EU, irrespective of the wishes of their citizens. Imagine not allowing people to work more than 40 hours a week, even though they and their employers wanted to do so. When you want to take away someone's rights, a little salesmanship, like calling a disturbing set of regulations harmonization, goes a long way. Similarly, when European countries wanted to cut taxes, as Ireland and Hungary and Estonia and Latvia wanted to do, liberals called this, quote, base erosion, to prevent the tax base from shrinking. Base erosion sounds bad, right? Base erosion is a way to label tax cuts to make them look bad. The 15% global minimum tax developed countries want to impose on corporations is supposed to combat base erosion. In reality, letting people keep more of their money is a good thing. Well, when describing the principles of the order of national states, Yoram writes, and I quote again, so you have to read the whole book to get everything, but I'm just giving you 2 quotes from the book. Quote, "The order of national states is one that grants political independence to nations that are cohesive and strong enough to secure it. This means that if a nation can, over time, master sufficient military and economic strength to prevent its own conquest by foreign powers, then other national states will recognize it as an independent nation within the order of national states," unquote. With free trade, as in other economic policies, the key is looking at what contributes to our economic strength. Free trade is compatible with nationalism if it preserves our economic strength. Our current policies with China do not contribute to our economic strength. There is no reciprocity in our trade with China. Consider that our laws allow Chinese companies to buy 100% of American companies, but American companies cannot buy 100% of important Chinese companies. The government of China keeps a stake in Chinese companies purchased by American companies. Do all of you think this is fair? Take the example of Lordstown Motors, the electric truck company, where Foxconn, a Taiwanese company under the influence of China, bought the plant and $50 million worth of stock. The plant was in great financial difficulties and might have gone under, but Foxconn is bailing it out. Now the Chinese government has a stake in Lordstown Motors. Does this add to the economic security of the United States? I would argue no, because the entire electrification project makes us more dependent on China. China has purchased other US electric vehicle and electric battery companies because it's in China's interest to sell batteries to the United States and in China's interest to have 100% of the US vehicle fleet be electric, as General Motors, Ford, California, and others have said would be a good thing. The Chinese company BYD won a contract in 2018 to sell electric buses to the state of Georgia. Here's another example. Chinese companies can list on American stock exchanges, raising capital in China for Chinese companies. But American companies do not list on Chinese stock exchanges. Li Auto, a Chinese hybrid auto company, went public on NASDAQ last year, and its stock has already doubled. It aims to sell hybrids to the American market. And how about this? Today's headlines were that teens are switching from Facebook and Instagram to TikTok, the Chinese social media darling. But Gmail and many other social media US apps are prohibited in China. No reciprocity there. China's algorithms can be used to influence our teens, and yet Chinese teens do not get access to the American culture. Let's take one final example. Look at the Confucius Centers that China sets up at American universities, set up to teach American students the advantage of the Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese system. Does anyone think that China would allow National Conservatism societies, Federalist societies, or Adam Smith societies to be set up at Chinese universities? Of course not. In all these cases, there's no reciprocity between China and the United States, so that this trade, what is termed free trade, does not add to America's economic strength. This is not compatible with nationalism. But most of the major economic interests in the United States are intertwined with the Chinese economy in some way. Most of America's economic elites have a financial incentive to see this unequal economic relationship succeed and continue. Just take a look at the list of Fortune 100 companies. All of them have an interest in China. The US economy is dependent on China. This is not a good thing because China is not our friend. It is not rational to say that we view China as the major competitor, but at the same time that we give China a deterrent power over our nation. Yesterday, on a panel in this room entitled The Challenge of China, panelists discussed what would happen if China tried to invade Taiwan. Some said that the United States would intervene. Others said that the United States would just let it happen. If you look at what is likely to happen politically, the leaders of all these Fortune 100 companies in the American economy and many other companies are not likely to have their businesses suffer over Taiwan. If China invades, there would be massive pressure for accommodation with China. China has tremendous leverage over the US economy. If you had to guess at probabilities, what would you say was more likely? Is it more likely that China would not invade Taiwan, or that the United States would not object when China invaded Taiwan? The latter, that the United States would not object when China invaded Taiwan, is far more likely. As an independent nation, we don't want to live as a vassal or underling to China. If China does something, we do not have the political appetite right now to respond. What to do? Well, we need to look at this matter clearly. Either we have to accept our dependence on China and live in a constrained way with our national independence compromised, or we need to forcibly disconnect with China and incur the costs of shifting our overseas manufacturing elsewhere and giving up Chinese markets. We need to think of the costs and benefits and ramifications of both these options. We need to think about them clearly. Because the second option is difficult, the way things are headed is for us just to keep up the current status quo. People realize that it is lack of reciprocity that has given China leverage over the United States, but they don't want to say it. They don't want to say that the Chinese emperor has no clothes. You might conclude from what I have said that I believe that free trade is not compatible with nationalism. But the nationalistic approach is that we choose our allies, and it shouldn't be by default. We don't want to live in a bubble economy. Just as we should realize the geopolitical consequences of trading with China, we should also realize the geopolitical consequence of trading with our friends. Take Canada as an example. Canada is our friend and our close trading partner. But what did President Biden do on his first day in office? He ended the Keystone XL pipeline, which would have pumped 830,000 barrels of oil per day from Alberta to our refineries along the Gulf of Mexico. This oil would have been refined and turned into gasoline, some for use in the United States and some for export. This trade would have helped the United States and is compatible with nationalism because it strengthens our economic position and makes us more economically secure. President Trump put a tariff of 20% on Canadian lumber in 2017, and President Biden reduced it to 9% when he took office. However, he is considering raising it to 18% this month. With lumber prices sky high in the United States and construction still going strong, I would argue that lumber tariffs should be lowered or done away with, not raised. Canada is our friend. China deters us more than we deter China because we are dependent on China. The United States has achieved its much-sought energy independence in oil and gas. But President Biden and the Democrats want to reduce oil and gas production and have our entire fleet run on electricity. Right now, China is the main producer of batteries and components. Our free trade strategy, compatible with nationalism, should be to support our friends and deter our adversaries. We will get more dependent on China as we move from gasoline-powered vehicles to electric, battery-powered vehicles. This trade is not compatible with nationalism. However, importing oil and lumber from Canada makes us stronger. This is compatible with nationalism. Thank you very much for listening today. I look forward to your questions.